Chairman, I've been ready. No, but we're missing a few bodies, but I think we're going to get started. Yeah, bring them on up.
Panel, esteemed panel. My mic on?
No, I got it. Oops.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll be relatively brief, but let me, we're on Senate Bill 960, and just by way of a little background, if you remember the governor's more inaugural address, where he stated, quote, "Clean energy is not just going to be part of the Maryland economy, it will define the Maryland economy." And we're doing a lot of things. Last session downstairs, we passed an offshore wind bill. It holds tremendous promise. Senator Elfreth just walked in this session. We're working on a big bill to incentivize jobs in the solar industry. And the Maryland Clean Energy Center was created by the General Assembly back in 2008. And its core mission, Mr. Chair, is to advance adoption of clean energy, energy efficiency products, services, technologies, leveraging private capital and private sector capabilities in efforts to help create and retain green jobs, driving economic and business development in our state. And in fact, MCEC has been able to leverage more than $165 million in private capital with only $12.1 million in terms of investment of public funds. With that background, Mr. Chair, here's an innovative idea that's contained in Senate Bill 960 for your consideration. This is a proposal that does not involve any new appropriation. We're talking about money already in our possession. And so specifically, and it's just a question of redeploying money that already exists that we have. So the Clean Energy Jobs Act in 2019 that I sponsored directed the Maryland Energy Administration to provide $7 million from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, the SEIF, for loans to small minority women and veteran-owned businesses from fiscal years 2021 through 2028 through an account managed in our Department of Commerce. And currently, that was set up back then. Right now, the Commerce Department's still holding $2.2 million that's essentially dead money, with an additional $4.8 million to be deposited over the next 4 fiscal years. That's $1.2 million per year out of the SEIF fund to the Commerce Department. Again, basically, until now, none of those funds have been used. So what 960 would do essentially is put those funds to work by supporting entrepreneurs, developing climate technology, et cetera. I do not believe, unless I'm mistaken, that the $90 million of SEIF money that this committee was working with has anything to do with this pot of money, which was separate and segregated through this Clean Energy Jobs Act, lottery funds, and I think ultimately to the Commerce Department. So bottom line, Senate Bill 960 establishes the Climate Technology Founders Fund, which will be administered by the Maryland Clean Energy Center, to provide early stage funding for startup companies developing qualifying climate technology projects. The technologies eligible for funding include solar and wind energy, energy storage devices, grid modernization, and carbon capture, utilization, and storage. It empowers the Maryland Clean Energy Center to identify and provide funding to other technologies that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, mitigate the impacts of climate change. Because the original bill wanted to preserve the original intent of how that SEIF money was deployed, so there is an amendment that I am offering that clarifies language already in the bill that gives a preference to small minority, women-owned, and veteran-owned businesses, and adds a threshold that at least 40% of the funds awarded be equity investments in minority, women-owned, and veteran-owned business startup companies. So this is basically taking this $2.2 million sitting there, the $1.2 million going forward, that's basically dead money, and redeploying it into this Founders Fund, startup money, et cetera. And determining what projects receive the investments. Recipients must provide matching funds. So there's a matching fund component equal to the assistance provided from the fund. The board of directors will establish an oversight committee to manage the fund. And the Clean Energy Center will report annually to the governor and to the General Assembly on the use of the funds, the outcomes of the investments made by the fund. Again, to reiterate, the one amendment clarifies the language, giving a preference to small minority, women-owned and veteran-owned businesses, and the threshold of at least 40% of the funds awarded go to those groups. You should have letters of support for this bill from the Maryland Department of Commerce, the Clean Energy Center, the Tech Council, the University of Maryland Energy Innovation Institute, who's represented here at the panel. Look, I know the bill's being heard late, but hopefully there's time to take a close look at this and get it to the floor in a somewhat timely fashion. With that, Mr. Chair, I'd ask for a favorable with that one amendment on Senate Bill 960. And I have my panel. We've got three folks, and we've got several folks. Kathy Magruder to my left runs the Clean Energy Center, so we're going to let her start first, and then we'll go to the other two folks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and Senator Feldman. Thank you for sponsoring this bill. For the record, my name is Kathy Magruder. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Clean Energy Center, here to request your favorable report on Senate Bill 960. Maryland is well positioned to benefit from the science that it seeks to adapt to and mitigate the impact of climate change. Discoveries that are happening in labs here today are becoming the new products, services, and technologies to fuel the state's economic engine. We believe that climate tech is the next biotech for Maryland. This work that we've been doing, and this is what we wanted to say today, we have a track record of success in transitioning research and development to the marketplace since the inception of the Maryland Energy Innovation Accelerator, which is a subsidiary program of MCEC. We have created 37 new companies working with entrepreneurs and over 134 new high-paying jobs in the state. Moreover, the state, university, and private sector partnership that we've been working through has helped bring to Maryland over $214 million in non-dilutive grant funding and over $70 million in private investment to help move these companies to the marketplace. We want to use some of the funds that we're requesting that you authorize us to use today to match federal money. I know there's concern about us pursuing federal grant funds. With $2 million, we could double that amount through the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration funds. We're currently working with $750,000 of those funds now. This bill proposes to put otherwise idle funds to work directly now and in the future to support small minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses to advance clean energy and decarbonization solutions faster and provide the necessary critical match to secure that federal funding. I'm going to pass the mic to my colleague, Wade Harley, who runs the Maryland Energy Innovation Accelerator.
Thank you. Director Pinsky with Maryland Energy Administration asked Mia, I'm the director of Mia, to write a strategic plan on what would we do with a 2x or 5x increase in investment into Mia. So we interviewed our clients, and what came back is what is in the legislation today. First, we're not going to expand the entry points into Mia, but we are going to add a phase 2, which is a prototype accelerator and a manufacturing accelerator. And the idea is to duplicate what we're already doing on the executive teams, but to move companies faster through the prototyping and manufacturing space, because that's where the jobs come from. The third phase at MIA will be the investments in the Founders Fund, which would be investments from the Maryland Clean Energy Center matched dollar for dollar with the founders, up to $100,000 that we could get money into these companies as they are growing and getting a non-dilutive funding from the federal government. And the other investment would be on the incubator side, which would be investments in hoods, in other equipment, because we are an expensive group. We are building gadgets. And so we need dry assembly space. We need wet labs. We need everything when our companies move out of the universities and into the private sector. And then the last investment would be in the MEIA seed grant funds. And I will let Dr. Waxman talk to that.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. Since I've already been preceded with a number of different comments, in particular, Ms. Magruder pointing out that this has created 37 new companies, 134 new high-paying jobs. $214 million in non-dilutive funding and $70 million in private funding. That's a 47 times return on investment for the money we've received for these particular activities. And that's very hard to beat. If you look at the back of my testimony, you'll see two examples of companies that have come out of us that have gotten some of our seed grants, one being InventWood. Oh, by the way, both were Maryland Future 20 companies. Okay, so out of the 20 companies in the state of Maryland, 2 were from supported through this. Each of them received a $100,000 seed grant. InventWood resulted in a $20 million RPE award and set up a 45,000 square foot manufacturing facility in Frederick, Maryland, where it's going to take wood products from our forest industry and produce new alternatives, replacements for steel. Another company I have to disclose is a company I founded, Ion Storage Systems. It's a battery company. Again, received a $100,000 seed grant. With that, created a prototype, which resulted in over $42 million in private VC funding. It now has a 35,000 square foot manufacturing facility, over 70 employees. And the current valuation of that company is over $170 million. So within a very few short years from receiving that $100,000 investment from this fund, it became valued at over $170 million. And in my humble opinion, it's on a short path to $1 billion IPO within a few years based on that small $100,000 seed grant. And therefore, I would appreciate and answer your support for this bill with the one amendment.
Questions for this panel? Is there anyone else here to testify on this bill?
There are 3 MIA companies that would like to testify.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
This will be on the vote list today or tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
So
Appreciate it.
be happy to hear from folks, but it'll be on the vote list today or tomorrow. Welcome, everyone.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chair, Senators. My name is Kabi Oseikusi. I'm the founder of an EV charging startup in Maryland. You recently saw that Blink Charging opened its headquarters in Maryland. We've been working on this for several years and have received tremendous support from MIA. This particular fund solves a key thing that all founders struggle with. It's called the Valley of Death. Is that initial $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 that you need to build your prototypes and do your pilots. And so if you see what Blink is doing, expanding in the state, there are more manufacturing that could happen in the state. But within this Valley of Death, a lot of startups, a lot of founders can't proceed without that capital. So I'm here to support and urge your favorable opinion for this bill. It's going to help more companies come into Maryland, grow, and become future billion-dollar companies here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Hamideh Sultani, Director of US Plasma. US Plasma is a startup company from University of Maryland. US Plasma's vision is to electrify manufacturing while minimizing waste, reducing greenhouse gas emission, and enabling new chemistry with reduced manufacturing costs. The company was formed 6 months ago with only 1 employee, myself. With MIA's support, US Plasma has managed to raise capital and got this company up and running and are about to hire 3 high-skills employees soon. US Plasma would not have been able to make the above progress without the full commitment, dedication, and caring support of MIA. MIA not only provided us with initial legal and business support, but also held weekly meetings with us to guide us through the business challenges and our efforts to connect with potential industry partners, equity investors, and human resource procurement. I should also mention the high value I received from MIA's entrepreneurial periodic seminars covering important topics crucial to success of new startup. Here, on behalf of US Plasma, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the MIA team for their unwavering help and support as I and the faculty founders are navigating through this phase of our journey. I would like to express our full support for this bill. Thank you.
Hello, committee, chair, vice chair. My name is Mark Wu, co-founder and director of manufacturing for JJ Innovative Materials. We target the negative impacts of the construction materials industry. Thanks to Mia's support, we've been able to develop a product. I believe it's been given to you guys. I hope so. And this product is in the middle of the valley of death. We've been given support from Mia and the EEIR faculty, HR staff, and extra corporate structure, communication system, project management development that Mia has given us. And through all that, we've developed a board product that the chair has right there. We expect to be moving from simply an R&D firm into a manufacturing firm. We intend to build in Baltimore and provide jobs and support for the climate capture industry, as well as the construction materials industry here. We hope to have the opportunity to grow even more together with Mia, Maryland, the city of Baltimore, as well as building manufacturing jobs and industry education connections. We wholeheartedly support this program, this bill. Thank you for your time.
Questions? Thank you very much. Anybody else here to testify on this bill? Thank you all very much. Who's here? 1114.
Good afternoon.
Noon.
For the record, Senator Mary Beth Carrozza, representing Maryland's coast, that's Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset counties. And I appreciate the opportunity to present SB 114. This is a very narrow bill that would allow a former member, Jason Dykes, who was a former member of the local fire and police retirement system, who is now an active member of the state police retirement system and incurred a break in service, to transfer his service from the one system, local fire and police retirement system, to the state police retirement system. And I just want to point out at the outset that there is no fiscal impact. Over the past couple years, I've been working with the state retirement pension system, local law enforcement, to assist my constituent, Corporal Jason Dykes. Based on these conversations and the work that Corporal Dykes has done over the years, we worked it as a case, but it became clear, Mr. Chair, that we had to resolve the matter before us with legislation. Let me explain the background. Corporal Jason Dykes served for nearly 10 years with the Salisbury Police Department. And during that time, he contributed to that local fire and police retirement system, which no longer exists. He then served 1 year with the Wycomico County Sheriff's Office, which is not under the state retirement system, before then serving the past 19 years with the Maryland State Police, where he continues to contribute to the state police retirement system. Due to his time with the Wycomico County Sheriff's Office, which the state retirement and pension system considers a break in service, Corporal Dykes is ineligible to buy back his almost decade of service with the Salisbury Police Department. I want to point out that since 2015, and it's 2024 now, Corporal Dykes has been trying to work this through non-legislative means to rectify this situation. He's worked with the staff from the state retirement and pension system. He has received representation from the Maryland Troopers Association. He's requested a hearing. He has appealed that hearing's decision. I did want to point out on his appeal, he was unable to personally present his appeal as he was attending the funeral of Wycomico Sheriff Corporal Glenn Hilliard, who was killed in the line of duty. Corporal Dykes has served Maryland honorably as a law enforcement professional for 30 years. In 2023, he was awarded the Superintendent Citation and received his 2022 Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year. He's been previously nominated for Trooper of the Year in 2014, and in 2006, he was also nominated for the Medal of Honor through the Maryland Chiefs of Police Association. He has served in numerous roles, from road patrol officer to an officer on the fugitive warrant unit, a mounted patrol officer, a detective, an undercover narcotics investigator, and a current member of the Maryland State Police Digital Forensic Lab. Corporal Dykes often goes beyond the call of duty to help our community on a regular basis. He is an exemplary officer, puts his own needs on hold to support others. I want to stress that Corporal Jason Dykes has exhausted all non-legislative actions to resolve this situation. Under current law, an officer serving out of state with a break-in service would be eligible for a transfer of service. And yet, because Corporal Dykes served in Maryland, he does not qualify. All this bill does is simply allow Corporal Dykes to be treated fairly and receive the time that he has earned through his dedicated service to the state of Maryland. I understand that the Maryland State Retirement and Pension System has raised some concerns. I want to point you to the fiscal note that the State Retirement Agency is aware of one individual, Jason Dykes, who is definitively eligible for the transfer of service under this bill. Accordingly, the bill has limited applicability. So with this background, I ask that you hear the testimony of Corporal Dykes, and I'm asking for a swift and favorable report on Senate Bill 1114. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Jason Dykes. I currently serve as a corporal in the Maryland State Police and have served in Maryland law enforcement for 30 years. I respectfully am requesting a transfer of my prior service with the Salisbury Police Department to the State Retirement and Pension System through Senate Bill 1114. I've been working in good faith to resolve this matter for the past several years when I began a process of attempting to purchase my time, nearly 10 years of service with SPD more than a decade ago. My time with SPD was credited under a state combined pension system. I knew it as McLeo. It no longer exists. In 2015, I worked directly with the staff from the State Retirement Pension System. After considerable communications, I was told that my time with the Wycomico Sheriff's Office was a break in service greater than 30 days, and I was ineligible to buy my nearly decade of service back. Also in 2015, I contacted the Maryland Trooper Association for assistance in possibly pursuing the buyback rollover option. I was put in touch with Richard Norman, who's the SRPS Board of Trustees member. He informed me that SRPS had considered breaks in service over 30 days for approval of transfer of service. Given the lack of awareness and transparency on this point and inconsistent application of COMAR, I was put in touch with MTA attorneys. Through this representation, eventually I was denied by SRPS again. SRPS referenced COMAR as the reason. I discovered, not via SRPS, that I could request a hearing, and if that failed, I could appeal, both of which I did. At my appeal, my attorney was advised to pursue a legislative bill by my state senator, as my state senator had offered to do, given that I exhausted non-legislative actions to resolve this matter. I've been a lifelong resident of Maryland. I began my career in law enforcement in 1994. My SPD time is vested in the state system. SRPS provides me with my MSP retirement statement as well as my SPD retirement statement. I'm unable to understand how a law enforcement officer serving out of state with a break-in service is eligible, and I am not. Cannot fathom why I'm being penalized for dedicating 30 years career in Maryland as a law enforcement officer, but not being able to purchase my time of service. I'm not asking for something that's not mine, nor something that's not there, nor something I have not earned. I understand that I would have to pay out of pocket or take a deficit in my percentage. I'm only asking to be treated fairly. Thank you for your time. I respect and urge a favorable report on Senate.
Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say, Jason, thank you very much for coming up. I have a bill that I have to present in another committee, so I'm going to run. But I wanted to just say that I worked with you. I was glad to see that you cut your hair to come here today. You know, because last time we worked together, his hair was down around his waist when he was working drugs undercover, and a very courageous person. We're going to do what we can to try to satisfy this issue and work with Ann. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's call through.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Oh, that was loud. I'm here today on behalf of the Board of Trustees for the State Retirement and Pension System to oppose Senate Bill 1114. As Senator Carrozza explained, this bill would allow an individual to transfer service credit from the local fire and police system into the state police plan and waive the requirement that the individual not have more than a 30-day break in service between employment positions. As she mentioned, we are only aware of Mr. Dykes being affected by this bill. So in the past, when you've had special legislation like this come before you, you've asked the agency to confirm that this legislation is based on either a mistake made by the agency or by the employer, or that maybe the member received misinformation. We've looked through Mr. Dykes' files and we could find no indication that that had happened. Enacting Senate Bill 1114 would not be correcting any error. It would only be allowing an individual to do something that no one else in the system is eligible to do. So while the fiscal note says that the impact on the contribution rate is not discernible, 100% correct. There is a de minimis effect to the contribution rate because of this bill. That being said, it's still an increase that it's resulting from providing an exception to the state transfer provisions for one member when there's no indication that the member received any misinformation. As a result, this bill will not only open the door to anyone else who missed their 30-day window and wants to transfer their service credit to come back, it would also open the door to just anyone in the plan who thinks, well, I would like an enhancement. I would like an exception to one of the rules in the pension system. And they would come forward and ask for that. I can tell you if that would happen, then the impact would not be de minimis to the plan. And because of this, we're going to be opposing the legislation. I would like to just mention one thing. Both Senator Carrozza and Mr. Dykes had said that out-of-state individuals can do this. That is not true. Out-of-state individuals can purchase service credit. And that is something we would be willing to speak with you all about. If Mr. Dykes is interested in a purchase provision, there are no purchase provisions like this in the state police plan, and they are in every other plan. I don't know why that is. We don't know why that is. This would be a full cost purchase. If it's going to be like an out-of-state purchase, which I think it should be treated the same, and that would be expensive, but that would be something we could talk about.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the hearing on that bill. 1119. Senator, before you get started, let me just let you know, if you don't know already, on our voting list, the first bill up after we get done here is a bill that we're going to amend to make this what you want done statewide.
Awesome.
So,
So in other words, don't talk too long.
well, or at all, but
With that being said, please pass Senate Bill 1119. Is that good?
yeah, I'm sorry about that. We should have probably gotten that message out, but everything's moving quickly around here.
Very good. I do at least want to introduce my panel.
Please do, yeah.
Terry
please.
Hickey, who's our Baltimore County's Director of the county's Department of Housing and Community Development, and Kimberly Ralston, who is from the County Executive's Office of Government Affairs. So this was a bill that was brought to the Baltimore County delegation for our county executive. You should have a letter in the file with the support of the Baltimore County delegation. With that, I ask for a statement. How's that?
Very good. Outstanding. And sorry we dragged you out here.
No problem.
But I think you're going to get what you want.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 1120.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Susan Lawrence, University System of Maryland, here in support of Senate Bill 1120. This bill should be very familiar to all of you because it comes to you year after year. Departmental bill authorizes the use of 30 million in academic facilities bonds for financing and refinancing construction, renovation, and renewal projects at the USM. The proposed amount in the bill of the debt is consistent with the Capital Debt Affordability Committee recommendation for fiscal 2025. And I have our Director of Financial Planning here, Samantha Norris, should you have any questions.
Very good. This also is in line with the SAC recommendations. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
11:42.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, distinguished members of the committee. Senate Bill 1142 is put in because this is a bill that we supported for the last couple of years, and it became law, and it was inadvertently erased from statute. So this puts it back into statute. I would ask for a favorable report.
Questions? Thank you very much.
I move favorable on the bill.
Second is fine. It's fine. Gonna move into voting soon. So we might as well do it. Yeah, this really was a screw up. Very inadvertent for an important tax client program. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You had a question? Sorry. All right, thank you very much. All right, we are going to take a 3 to 5 minute break. And go right into voting. Is that right?
Yep.
All right, here we go, voting session. Senate Bill 138. Whoops, I guess we're not ready. We need our analyst.
Which one?
138.
Senate Bill 138 came in first reader version just for Baltimore City, allowing them to set a special property tax rate for vacant buildings. There are some amendments in front of you that essentially, the first one is kind of technical. If you're gonna, you need to create a subclass before you can authorize a special tax rate. So that's what it does on page 1. And also the amendments make this bill and give this authority to all counties and the city of Baltimore, as well as a report kind of asking for information on what properties are setting the rate for, the use of the extra funds, and then the possibility of converting these properties to adaptive reuse, which is additional dwellings.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
As amended? Opposed? Okay. Let's go down to the 677.
Okay, did you want to do a floor leader?
Corey. Housing, it's your area.
Senate Bill 677 establishes a timeline for when business tax filings and personal taxes must be filed online. Businesses will go to online filing in 2026 and personal taxes in 2030. There were some exceptions to this. Seniors 65 or older, filers with income below 200,000, single filers, and then joint filers with incomes below 400,000. The disabled community, small businesses with less than 15 employees. There is an amendment. The amendments basically make technical changes to the program, define certain terms, and establishes a civil penalty for violators that do not file online. And there was also in another amendment that does not require online filing if a person has a disability or it is against their religious beliefs.
Yeah. Is there a motion? Okay. As amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sucker. 589.
Senate Bill 589. This bill permanently extends the funding to the Tri-County Council for SMATIC. It increases the funding from 900,000 to 1 million and authorizes the governor to allocate from the Cigarette Restitution Fund 5% in accordance with the Cigarette Master Settlement Agreement. There is one amendment that is proposed amendment in line with what the committee typically does with these types of bills, and it changes shall to may on page 2 in line 9.
I need to check something on that one. We're gonna move on to the next one for a minute. Hmm. 878.
Senate Bill 878, we discussed, the committee discussed last week and came up with 2 amendments. The First Amendment would, there are 2 amendments for your consideration. The First Amendment would remove lottery from the fund and reduce to 0.5% the amount of the proceeds from fantasy competitions and sports wagering. The fiscal impact under this would be approximately 1.6 million. And the Second Amendment leaves the percentage at 1%, but removes lottery, and the fiscal impact would be 3.3 million.
I apologize. I was in the middle of some other stuff here. So we ended up doing, was this the, did we leave this at taking lottery out and doing 0.5%? Is that where we ended up on the?
We had two alternatives, two
I got you.
amendments. One
Gotcha.
was, both of them take lottery out.
One was
leaves it
1%,
at
one was
0.5.
0.5%.
Yes.
What were the 2 numbers again generated?
3.3 million if you leave it at the 1%, and if you take it down to 0.5%, it's 1.6 million.
Okay. Senator Corbin.
What's the, taking lottery, what's the revenue source? Is it just general fund, I'm guessing at that point, or?
Fantasy competitions and sports wagering.
Oh, it comes out of the winnings per se. I got it.
Out of the proceeds that
Right, proceeds. Okay, thank you.
So I asked her to do those 2 just to give us some framework. I mean, I think it's a significant issue. The one thing I was a little concerned about is just how widely known that this was going on. Now, we obviously had a public hearing, but I don't think we had any opposition. And so, is that accurate? We didn't have any opposition, did we?
No.
I mean, I'm happy at the 1%. But I just wanted to throw that out there. I think it's a significant issue. I think clearly we probably should have done this earlier. But we didn't. And so here we are. Senator Quarterman.
Before I apologize, did we ever find out what their need was? There was conversations last week what the amount of money was, also about maybe a reporting requirement so they could track it and put it back or something like that?
Yeah, I think we should definitely do a reporting requirement. Absolutely. Did you have that already, Janine?
I will add a reporting requirement, or there is a reporting requirement, but I can add to it.
Okay. Good. Everybody good with this?
Yep.
All right. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. We go back to 589 for a second. And I think what we're gonna, what's that?
It says it should be. Keep this in the shadow. Keep that.
Without any amendments. I think what I'd like to do is on that 589, there was that amendment that you had. I think that was my mistake. I shouldn't have put that in there. So I'm gonna, if we just pull that amendment out, I think it's fine the way it is. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Senator Bailey. And okay. All right, 1092.
So 1092, you have a reprint in your package. Basically, this bill is for the emergency medical system surcharge. It's basically adding funding for MEMSOF and shock trauma. To follow the reprint on the first page, there are changes to the purpose paragraph. On the second page, there are definition terms, and it requires that 10% of the fines collected from DUIs or impaired driving go to the physician's trauma fund. The next page deals with reimbursement of compensation for standby physicians, and it increases the reimbursement rates from 30 to 35% and from 35 to 40% for on-call physicians who are on standby. The next amendment expands what is covered in the commission's report each year. There's a report that they're required to do, and it just expands it so that they can provide more information. Then you get to what the page number is, page 2 of 4. This amendment is the actual meat of what the bill initially was, and it increases by $23 each year the surcharge on vehicle registrations. And that allocates $5 to the Trauma Physicians Fund, $9 to Shock Trauma, and $9 to MEMSOF. On page 3 of 4 of the reprint, this increases the fines by the 10% for the DUIs and the impaired drivers. So the fines will go from $1,000 to $1,100 and $2,000 to $2,200, with that 10% going towards MEMSOF. And then there are 2 more things that this legislation will do. On the next to the last page of the reprint, the bill increases the annual appropriation for the Senator William Amos Fire Rescue Fund from $15 million to $16.5 million beginning in fiscal 2026. And then there is a standalone amendment that provides $900,000 to the Washington Children's Center and $900,000 to the Johns Hopkins Children's Center for pediatric trauma funding.
Senator Alford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Janine, thank you for this. I think I'm thrown a little bit by the how we are actually implementing the increased fine on DUIs. Can you just run through that one more time, please?
Sure. The fines are increased by 10%. The 10% goes to the Physicians Trauma Fund. The original fine was $1,000, so that 10% will be $100. So the fine goes from $1,000 to $1,100, with that $100 going towards the fine. And then a second offense or another offense would be $2,000. 10% increase of that takes it to $200 more. That $200 goes towards the fine.
And that's all captured in bill page 2.
It's a couple of bill
And
pages.
could you just run through those one time? Thank you.
Sure.
So section 3. And then where else?
One second. So if you go to what's labeled as, I think it's page 3 of 4, under 21-902, at the bottom of the page, A1, 3 little I, you'll see it moves, the fine for first offense moves from $1,000 to $1,100.
Okay.
For a second offense, from $2,000 to $2,200. And then if you go to the next page, it's the same thing. When you get to 2B, 2 little I,
Okay.
1,100, it's increased to, and 2,200, it's increased to.
Okay, we just had to put it in because it's in both the transportation article and in this. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I think my confusion is solved. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Jennings, I mean, this is a tough bill. It's complicated because there are a lot of moving parts on it, and so we want to get it right. And we want to be able to accomplish everything. At the end of the day, the bottom line is we want to be able to ensure that this system, which is trauma, but it's also even broader than that, quite frankly, because MSOF is included in it. It's the whole communication system, and there are 3 component parts to this. It's confusing in part also because it involves a registration fee, and the registration fee is recorded on a 1-year level, but it's actually charged to individuals on a 2-year level because the owner of a car would see it on a 2-year level, but it's set up in a 1-year level. So it's all that translation, and we're going to try to make sense of all that so everybody understands exactly what we're doing, because the bottom line is creating a sustaining source that will go on into the future. Senator Jennings.
Jennings.
I'm
sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with everything you said there. Very important. I just want to make sure that the dollar amounts are what I think what's expected from this increase. I guess it's on page 7 is where it increases to Park, which is shock trauma, as well as MSOFT fund or MEMS. It's that $9. Does that equate to 41 million?
Yes.
Annually?
Yes.
Okay. And the physicians fund goes up to 750. And that'll be
which is a $5.
$5 increase.
$5. Okay. Yeah. So
and that generates what?
How much does that generate?
The $5 increase generates 23 million.
23. So it's 23, 41, and 41.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And those are the 3 component parts.
Yes.
All of which are vital to the overall system of providing emergency services, medical services.
Prevent its collapse.
Through the whole state. Yep. Includes the helicopters. I mean, everything that you can imagine gets funded into this. There was I think we've got it in the capital budget. Did we put that tower in the budget?
Mr. Chairman, I know it's a top priority of yours. We haven't finalized decisions, but it's a top priority.
Yeah, so I mean, it takes a lot to keep this all going. There's a communications tower that MIMS has that which is unrelated, but all important. All these things come together. There's a tower that is, I guess, suffered some damage, and we're gonna have to repair that in the capital budget. So lots of pieces, parts to keeping Marylanders as safe as we possibly can. Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question in the deliberation or the consideration for the bill. I know there was some conversation, may have been in subcommittee regarding the tires for the EVs as well. Did that come up?
The what for the
tire
EV?
sales?
I don't recall that on this bill.
Okay, it must have been in subcommittee. We may have talked about that time before. We can consider that later, but thank you.
Certainly. Senator McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in reference to, I guess, the trauma centers and understanding what some of the reporting requirements that's coming out. I see in here where they are establishing, I guess, the appropriate funding for the respective trauma centers, and the HSCRC and MHCC is doing that, I guess, collaboratively. I assume it's going to land where it was with the 9.5? I don't want to assume but how does that information gets reported back out to our respective committees? Also, in reference to once the trauma centers received that funding, there was a number of different issues that was brought to our attention about why they need the funding. Is there reporting opportunities to be able to understand whether it went to those specific issues that was supposed to be addressed?
Sure. Ms. Banks. You're on mute.
So there is a reporting aspect to this, and it is mostly in reference to how to develop the funding levels for the physicians. I can add more language if you would like additional language.
That'd be good. Yep, let's do that. We'll assume everybody, we're gonna vote on this, so we gotta get this moving. But we'll assume that that we'll come up with some good language by the time we get to the floor. Senator Corman.
Thank you. Act 2 on page 7, when we're talking about some of the charges and you got my attention and we were talking about how it's a per year, but then it's captured over 2 years. So would that be accurate then to the change in the surcharge from 17 to 40? It's $23 per year. So would that mean on a registration would be actually be 46?
That's correct.
And then the other one,
That's what I believe.
So it'd be
Denise, is that correct?
It's gonna be a total of $40. It's 17 currently, 23 onto the 17 makes it 40.
right.
And then that's each year. So it would end up being $80.
Right, but the difference is the 23.
Mhm.
That's not 46 plus.
I don't think.
So I guess, again, the question would be, let me back up a second. What is the current, I guess, vehicle registration? Do you have that as far as for just a regular car?
Sure.
Like it's like 135, 140, something like that?
135, depending on what the weight of your car
Right,
is.
just your standard car is like
135 to
135, right? So 135, so then it's gonna go up basically another 23, 46, another 56, so it'd be 190. What is that, 191?
Should be about 181, I think. 181.
Plus the other 5 for the other one though. Because the other one gets $5 as well, right? The
5, 9, and 9, which is 23 total. So it's 23 total.
Okay, so the math is confusing.
Okay.
Right, we can back up. So it is 46 additional. So current rate is for registration is 135. But part of that already is going to this cause.
right, 17.
So I think does it go up to 80?
80.
On a 2-year cycle.
On a 2-year cycle, right? So then on a 2-year cycle, right, it's the 17, 17 and the 46. And that's how we get it up to the number that she was calling. But the reality is, I mean, if you just sort of try to put it in the simplest terms, is
I'm just
that
trying to figure out what people's vehicle registrations. are
that's
like.
exactly what I'm going to try to do.
Okay.
It's 135 plus 46. And that's for vehicles that are that are
Right,
3,700 pounds or lower. Above 3,700 pounds, it starts at 187 and you'd add 46 to that.
Okay, thank you.
Makes sense? Yep. It is a little tricky the way it's all calculated out, but that, I think what you're asking is the most important question, because that's what people will see. That's right. Okay, everybody clear on that? Senator Alfreth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Totally clear. Just wanted to just explain a little bit. The children, there's 2 pediatric trauma centers, Children's in DC serving the DC Metro, and then Hopkins in Baltimore serving Baltimore Metro and the rest of the state. Children's currently receives 590,000 as a direct grant through the Physicians Fund. So this is not actually 1.8 million in new money. It's less than that because of we're just getting up to 900 for both of those pediatric facilities because of their unique challenges and needs. Thank you.
And okay. The other component part that has to do with Medicaid. So there's money already sitting in the physicians fund right now that has not been easily accessible. And there is an amendment in there that Deneen went through that changes some percentages. And by changing the percentages, we're hoping to shake loose some of that 7 million that's in the fund. And that's why, in part, there's a little less money for that component part. But just want to mention that piece to it. Do we think we've got all of this? I want to take the time we need to get it right. I think we're in good shape. Yes.
There's $7 million sitting
Yeah.
in the
So the physicians fund.
physician service fund.
Yeah, the physicians fund is there because
I get that.
you know why it's there.
I understand that. But
Okay.
I'm talking about how much more we're contributing to that service fund if they have $7 million.
Right. And so that's just money that's in there for one time. Each of these pots, these 3 different pots for the physician, for the shock trauma downtown, and for MSOF, they'll all be building on an annual basis now. So it's one-time money that we're trying to get released at the moment.
That's currently built into this bill.
What we're the releasing of the mechanism to try to get releasing that
Got it.
money. Yes.
Got it.
Okay. All good? All right. Have a motion? All with as amended. Yeah. All those in favor as amended? Opposed? Okay. All right. I think we got through all of those. A little bumpy today, but I think we're there. What's that?
Yeah, did you?
Did we miss one?
The one you just heard today.
Oh, the climate. Well, didn't you say that we had an issue with that? We need to deal with.
I have 1 or 2 more questions, but they're not fatal.
With that, yeah, we can wait till tomorrow. We'll wait tomorrow on that one, on that one. All right, thank you all very much. Do they all know? Do they know?